Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless official 24 channel. Matt's million-dollar question, Noah panics over Nick's news. Matt Clark aka Mitch Bacall will ask himself the million-dollar question while Noah Newman panics over Nick Newman's news. At the cottage, Sharon Newman will refuse to let Noah leave to go look for SIENNA Bacall himself. Instead, Sharon will quiz Noah about his breakup with Aline Gwynn and hear about his love for SIENNA. While Noah worries about his dad's meeting, Matt will join Nick at the park overlook and taunt him about his return from the grave. Nick will eventually get down to business and insist he's offering $1 million for the safe return of SIENNA. If he had chosen Noah, Matt will act as though that number ought to be higher and will assert that it would contain significantly more zeros. Nevertheless, Nick will push Matt to take the money and stay out of their lives forever. Matt will end up threatening to hurl himself into the nearby ravine so that Nick will get blamed for it. Nick will invite Matt to go ahead and will suggest he's willing to take his chances with the cops. Nick will even offer to help Matt along, but Matt will admit he's not serious and decide to take Nick's deal. However, Matt will make it clear that Nick has to do things his way. Matt will plan to get out of the country and have Nick send the money to an offshore account before he reveals where SIENNA is. Afterward, Nick will head back to Sharon's place with updates, so Noah will flip out and assume Matt won't deliver SIENNA as promised. Noah will argue that they can't let Matt get away, so Nick will agree. That said, Nick will warn Noah that they have to let this play out. At a motel, Annie Stewart will watch over SIENNA, who'll be passed out on the bed nearby. Matt will return and fill Annie in on the details of his deal with Nick. Matt will admit that he took the Newmans' money, but he will not know whether he will actually repay SIENNA. Matt will also mull over the million-dollar question of whether he'll let Noah live or not. At Crimson Lights, Billy Abbott will tell Phyllis Summers that the offer he made is on the back burner, so she'll complain. Billy will blame Jack Abbott for pumping the brakes, but he'll acknowledge that Phyllis is a loose cannon who's burned too many people. Although Billy will push Phyllis to be honest about her agreement with Victor Newman and what he promised her, she'll keep playing innocent. As for the deal Phyllis now wants to make with the Abbotts, she'll insist it's about keeping Summer Newman out of the Newman-Abbott crossfire. Phyllis will admit she owes Summer far more than Marchetti after all her mistakes, so Billy will push her to convince Jack to get on board. Phyllis will head to the Abbott mansion, where she'll urge Jack to strike the Marchetti deal and let her steal back the AI program from Victor. Jack will continue to drag his feet on the idea, so Phyllis will ultimately leave. Next on Monday's YNR episode, Billy will meet up with Jack and admit he still thinks Phyllis is a better option than Michael Baldwin or Nikki Newman. Phyllis Summers will surprise Jack Abbott while Nick Newman tests Matt Clark aka Mitch Bacall. Noah Newman will also deal with his worst fear, so let's talk about what's ahead on YNR. For starters, it turns out Phyllis will have a gift to pass along. Jack will receive a surprise present from Phyllis, so it might give him a little more faith in her. Jack's been struggling over the idea of trusting Phyllis to help the Abbotts fight back against Victor Newman. Working with Phyllis tends to lead to troubling news and tight spots. The fact that Phyllis only demanded Marchetti for Summer Newman and nothing for herself will remain suspicious as far as Jack's concerned. Jack will feel like there must be something else Phyllis wants. Plus, Jack will have concerns over whether Phyllis will actually hand over the AI program if she steals it back. It's possible that Phyllis will openly admit to Jack that she intends to use the program against Victor and take control of Newman Enterprises. That's the pitch Phyllis recently made to Kane Ashby, so she might push Jack to get on board. It's even possible that Phyllis's strategy will be the present she gives Jack. Phyllis might play up how Victor's going to suffer and push Jack to accept that he deserves a good dose of revenge. Of course, Jack may have some reservations about that. The current goal is to stop Victor and restore peace to Genoa City, but Phyllis may argue that they have to take things a step further or else Victor will always pose a threat. Over with Noah, he'll continue to fret over missing SIENNA Bacall now that she's back under Matt's control. Noah knows what Matt is capable of by now, so he'll worry that she won't make it out of this alive. However, Nick will convince Matt to join him at the park, where they'll do some negotiating. Since Nick hinted about a deal over the phone, Matt will be willing to hear his proposition. That doesn't necessarily mean Matt will accept the terms, especially if he has a hunch Nick is trying to trick him. Nick's going to put Matt to the test during this confrontation, but Matt may insist he's the boss here and warn that he's not to be messed with. Matt's million-dollar question looms like a loaded gun over Genoa City as fear, desperation, and power plays collide from Sharon's quiet cottage to a desolate motel room, and no one feels the weight of it more than Noah Newman, whose panic reaches a breaking point the moment Nick's dangerous plan begins to unfold. At the cottage, Sharon Newman stands firm, refusing to let Noah storm out and play hero by searching for Sienna Bacall himself, knowing full well that Matt Clark, better known as Mitch Bacall, is a predator who feeds on reckless emotion, and as Sharon blocks the door, her voice calm but unyielding, she demands answers Noah has been avoiding, forcing him to finally confront the wreckage of his breakup with Aline Gwynn and confess that his heart never truly belonged there anymore, because it was Sienna who captured his soul, Sienna who made him feel alive, and Sienna who now may be paying the ultimate price for trusting the wrong man. Noah's fear escalates as he admits he can't stop imagining what Matt is doing to her, and when Sharon presses him about Nick's meeting, Noah's hands shake as he admits he's terrified his father is walking into a trap, one that could cost them everything. While across town, Matt strolls into the park overlook with smug confidence, taunting Nick Newman about surviving death itself and mocking the idea that the great Newman patriarch could ever intimidate him. But Nick wastes no time indulging Matt's theatrics and gets straight to business, laying out a jaw-dropping offer of $1 million for Sienna's safe return. A number Matt scoffs at immediately as he leans in close and reminds Nick that if he'd taken Noah instead, the price tag would have come with a lot more zeros, a chilling reminder that this is a man who sees human lives as currency, yet Nick refuses to flinch, insisting Matt take the money and disappear forever. But Matt's twisted mind shifts gears as he suddenly threatens to throw himself into the ravine below, claiming Nick will be blamed for pushing him, only for Nick to coldly call his bluff, daring him to jump and even offering to help, a move that momentarily rattles Matt before he admits he isn't suicidal, just opportunistic, and agrees to the deal on his own terms, revealing his plan to flee the country and demanding Nick wire the money to an offshore account before he gives up Sienna's location, leaving Nick no choice but to accept while knowing full well he's bargaining with a snake. And when Nick returns to Sharon's place with the update, Noah absolutely spirals, convinced Matt will never deliver on his promise and furious that they're letting a monster walk free, but Nick warns him that patience is the only weapon they have right now, even as the danger escalates elsewhere, because at a rundown motel, Annie Stewart sits on edge watching over Sienna, who lies unconscious on the bed, pale and helpless, while Matt storms in and smugly fills Annie in on the deal, admitting he's decided to take the Newmans' money but still hasn't decided whether he'll actually give Sienna back, confessing aloud the million-dollar question that keeps rattling around in his head, whether Noah Newman deserves to live or die, revealing a chilling obsession that proves this isn't just about money anymore, it's personal, deeply personal, and while lives hang in the balance, the war on another front continues at Crimson Lights, where Billy Abbott informs Phyllis Summers that his offer is officially on the back burner, prompting Phyllis to erupt in frustration as Billy blames Jack Abbott for slamming on the brakes, though he can't deny that Phyllis's history of betrayal makes her a risky ally, yet Billy pushes her to finally come clean about whatever deal she struck with Victor Newman, only for Phyllis to continue playing innocent while insisting her current agenda is about protecting Summer Newman from the Abbott-Newman crossfire, admitting she owes her daughter far more than she ever owed Marchetti after a lifetime of mistakes, a confession that briefly softens Billy before he challenges her to prove it by convincing Jack to get on board, sending Phyllis straight to the Abbott mansion where she once again pressures Jack to strike the Marchetti deal and let her steal back Victor's stolen AI program, but Jack remains cautious, dragging his feet and questioning her motives until Phyllis finally storms out, only for the tension to intensify the following Monday when Billy meets Jack again and bluntly admits he still believes Phyllis is the best option they have, even better than Michael Baldwin or Nikki Newman, setting the stage for Phyllis to shock Jack with a mysterious gift, one that could be information, leverage, or even the outline of a bold revenge plot, because Jack knows Phyllis far too well to believe she wants nothing in return, suspecting she intends to use the AI program to strike back at Victor and potentially seize control of Newman Enterprises, a pitch she's already floated to Kane Ashby, and while Jack wrestles with whether revenge will finally bring peace or only ignite a bigger war? Noah's nightmare continues as he fears Sienna may not survive another night under Matt's control, but Nick moves forward with the park meeting anyway, testing Matt's resolve and pushing him to prove he's serious about the deal, even as Matt warns Nick not to underestimate him and insists he's still the one in charge. Making it painfully clear that every second Sienna remains missing is a reminder that Matt Clark isn't finished yet, and neither is the danger surrounding Noah Newman, whose worst fear is rapidly becoming a terrifying reality as loyalty, love, and greed crash together in a storyline where one wrong move could cost multiple lives. The tension only intensifies after that chilling park confrontation, because once Nick Newman walks away from Matt Clark with the weight of $1 million gamble pressing down on his chest, the reality of what he's done begins to sink in, and back at Sharon's cottage the atmosphere becomes suffocating as Noah Newman paces like a trapped animal, replaying every word Nick said and every unspoken fear lurking beneath them, convinced that Matt is playing a long, cruel game and that Sienna Bacall's life is nothing more than a bargaining chip in a twisted power struggle. Sharon tries to steady her son, reminding him that panic is exactly what Matt feeds on, but Noah can't shake the image of Sienna alone, drugged, scared, and powerless, and when Nick insists they have to let the plan unfold exactly as agreed, Noah snaps, accusing his father of trusting a man who has already proven he can't be trusted, yet Nick fires back that storming in recklessly will only get Sienna killed, a warning that hits Noah like a punch to the gut and leaves him feeling helpless for the first time in his life. While across town at the motel, Matt's mood shifts unpredictably as he paces the room, staring down at Sienna's unconscious form with a mix of triumph and resentment, confessing to Annie Stewart that the money should make him feel victorious but instead leaves him restless, haunted by the fact that Noah Newman still has a future waiting for him, something Matt believes should have been his. And as Annie nervously asks whether he's really going to let Sienna go, Matt dodges the question, admitting that the $1 million payout is tempting, but the real question consuming him is whether vengeance is worth more than freedom, because if Noah walks away unscathed, Matt fears he'll always feel like the loser in this twisted game, and while Matt wrestles with that decision, Nick makes arrangements for the offshore transfer, knowing full well that every click of the keyboard could be sealing a deal with the devil, yet he's willing to risk public humiliation, legal fallout, and financial loss if it means saving an innocent life, a resolve that only grows stronger when Noah quietly admits that if anything happens to Sienna, he'll never forgive himself, or Matt, for the rest of his life. Meanwhile, the battle lines continue to form at the Abbott mansion, where Phyllis Summer's so-called gift weighs heavily on Jack Abbott's mind, because whatever she's offering has the potential to change everything, and when Phyllis finally corners Jack again, she lays her cards on the table with brutal honesty, admitting she doesn't just want Marchetti back for Summer, she wants Victor Newman dethroned once and for all, insisting the AI program is the key to dismantling his empire and ending the cycle of control and fear he's imposed on Genoa City for decades. A pitch that leaves Jack torn between his desire for peace and the undeniable temptation of revenge, especially as Billy Abbott reinforces the idea that Victor will never stop unless someone finally hits him where it hurts, yet Jack can't ignore the risk of unleashing Phyllis fully, knowing her methods often come with collateral damage, and as he hesitates, Phyllis warns that if he doesn't act now, Victor will tighten his grip and leave the Abbotts powerless, a threat that lingers long after she walks out again. Back at Sharon's place, Noah's anxiety morphs into grim determination as he begins to suspect Matt may be setting them up for one final betrayal. And despite Nick's warnings, Noah secretly considers taking matters into his own hands, convinced that sitting still is the worst possible choice, while Nick senses the shift in his son's behavior and makes it clear that any reckless move could undo everything they've worked for. But the unspoken truth between them is that neither of them fully believes Matt will honor the deal, a fear that feels increasingly justified when Matt returns to the motel and announces that the money transfer is underway, only to hesitate when Annie presses him for the location where Sienna will be released, his silence revealing that the $1 million question is far from answered, because deep down Matt knows that once he gives Sienna back, his leverage disappears forever, leaving him with nothing but a bank account and the ghosts of his past failures, and as he looks down at Sienna again, a dangerous thought takes root, that keeping her just a little longer might force Noah to make a mistake, one that could give Matt the satisfaction he's been craving. Even as the walls begin to close in around him, At the same time, Jack Abbott finds himself alone, staring out at the Newman skyline and questioning whether aligning with Phyllis is the only way to protect his family, realizing that morality has become a luxury in a town ruled by power and secrets. And as Billy continues to argue that Phyllis is their strongest weapon despite her volatility, Jack starts to wonder if trusting her might be the lesser of two evils, a realization that could set off a chain reaction no one is prepared for. The tension reaches a boiling point when Nick receives confirmation that the money has been wired, prompting him to demand immediate proof that Sienna is alive, a demand Matt meets with infuriating calm as he sends a cryptic message promising information soon. A delay that sends Noah into full-blown panic as he imagines every possible scenario ending in tragedy, while Sharon tries desperately to keep him grounded, reminding him that hope is the only thing keeping them sane, yet even she struggles to silence the dread creeping into her own heart. As night falls, Matt stands at the motel window, staring out at the darkness and weighing his options, knowing that one decision will define the rest of his life, and whether he chooses money or revenge, someone is going to pay a devastating price, making it painfully clear that the story is far from over and that Genoa City is bracing for a fallout that could shatter families, expose long-buried truths, and leave scars that will never fully heal, because when Matt Clark finally answers his million-dollar question, the consequences will be irreversible for Noah Newman, Nick Newman, Sienna Bacall, and everyone caught in the crossfire of a game that has gone far beyond money and into the darkest corners of obsession and control. As dawn creeps over Genoa City, the silence becomes almost unbearable, because everyone involved knows that once Matt Clark makes his next move, there will be no undoing it, and at Sharon's cottage the air is thick with sleepless dread as Noah Newman sits hunched over the kitchen table, eyes bloodshot, replaying every memory of Sienna Bacall in his mind as if sheer willpower could protect her, while Sharon watches helplessly, realizing her son is standing on the edge of something dangerous, a place where fear can quickly turn into obsession. And when Nick Newman finally admits that Matt has gone radio silent after confirming the wire transfer, Noah's worst fears roar to life, accusing Matt of dragging this out for leverage and insisting they should have involved the police from the beginning, but Nick snaps back that Matt already warned them what would happen if law enforcement got involved, reminding Noah that Sienna's life has always been the price of one wrong move, a truth that leaves Noah trembling with rage and guilt, because deep down he knows his love for Sienna is what put her in Matt's crosshairs, while miles away in that grimy motel room, Matt stands over Sienna's bed watching her chest rise and fall, torn between the thrill of power and the gnawing realization that this is as close as he'll ever come to winning, because even with $1 million on the way, he knows he'll never have what Noah has, family, loyalty, a future, and that realization eats at him far more than poverty ever did, pushing him to pace the room as Annie Stewart begs him to think clearly, warning that dragging this out will only bring consequences he can't escape, but Matt brushes her off, insisting he's still in control and that the Newmans will dance as long as he plays the music, even as a flicker of doubt crosses his face when Sienna stirs slightly, mumbling Noah's name in her sleep, a sound that cuts deeper than Matt expects and fuels his resentment even more. Back at the Abbott mansion, Jack Abbott finally reaches his breaking point as Billy Abbott corners him again, arguing that Victor Newman's grip is tightening by the hour and that waiting for the perfect moral solution will only ensure their defeat, forcing Jack to admit that Phyllis Summers may be reckless and manipulative, but she's also the only one ruthless enough to go toe-to-toe with Victor and survive, a realization that leaves Jack staring into his drink, haunted by the possibility that saving his family may require unleashing chaos he can't control, while Phyllis herself sits alone at Crimson Lights, convinced she's running out of time and quietly rehearsing her pitch for one final push, determined to prove she's more than just the town's favorite scapegoat. Meanwhile, Noah's fear mutates into resolve as he secretly begins tracing Matt's past movements, piecing together clues Nick missed and convincing himself that if he can just find the motel, he can save Sienna without bloodshed, a dangerous plan he keeps hidden, knowing Nick would shut it down immediately. Yet fate seems determined to test him when Matt suddenly sends Nick a message demanding one last face-to-face meeting before he reveals Sienna's location, a request that feels like a loaded trap but leaves Nick with no choice but to agree, while Noah overhears just enough to realize something is happening without him, igniting a fresh wave of panic that Sharon struggles to contain. At the motel, Matt prepares for the meeting with manic energy, rehearsing scenarios where he walks away rich and untouchable, and others where he finally confronts Noah directly, admitting to Annie that the $1 million doesn't matter if he still feels invisible afterward, because what he truly craves is acknowledgement, the satisfaction of knowing he mattered enough to destroy someone else's life. And as Annie warns him that obsession will be his downfall, Matt laughs bitterly, insisting he's already fallen and has nothing left to lose. The tension explodes when Nick arrives at the park once more, wary and guarded, demanding proof that Sienna is alive before another word is spoken, prompting Matt to smugly show him a brief video of Sienna barely conscious, enough to confirm she's breathing but not enough to reveal her location, a move that sends Nick's blood running cold even as he hides it behind a stoic exterior. And when Nick insists the deal is done and it's time to let her go, Matt hesitates, staring out over the ravine again as if weighing the possibility of making Nick suffer just a little longer, before casually admitting that the real question isn't about money at all, it's about Noah, a revelation that hits Nick like a sledgehammer as Matt openly wonders whether letting Noah live with the trauma of this ordeal is punishment enough, or whether ending him would finally settle the score, a threat that pushes Nick to the brink as he warns Matt that touching his son would be the biggest mistake of his life, only for Matt to smile and remind him that mistakes are what brought them all here in the first place. Back at Sharon's cottage, Noah feels the shift in the air, a gut-level certainty that something is going wrong. And despite Sharon's pleas, he grabs his keys and storms out, convinced that waiting any longer will cost Sienna her life, setting off a race against time as Nick senses something is off during the meeting and realizes Noah may already be on the move, a realization that shakes his confidence and forces him to confront the terrifying possibility that his son could walk straight into Matt's trap. Elsewhere, Jack Abbott finally gives Phyllis Summers a call, telling her they need to talk immediately.